Hi everybody, it's me again. This is part two of the lectures that we're taking in Richmond. Alrighty, so I sent you slides in a folder. You should have gotten those before I left California. And there was a small one in there that was called, what was it, User Stories. It's like 4 or 5 slides. And we're going to go through that as part 2 of this 3 video series that I'm going to try and post to YouTube. Again, this is all experimental. I have no idea what I'm doing, so please play along, okay? All right, so while you're setting up, then I'm going to just talk at you. What I'd like you to do is open up your slides on your computer and kind of follow along with what I'm doing here, talking to you and doing some scribbling on the board, okay? So why don't we pause the video right now? Not you. That's my brother taking video, okay? He's recording this thing. So you guys pause the video. You guys out there in the ether, pause the video. And when you get back, we'll start with the slideshow. In the pause period, what you would like to do is open up your PowerPoint slide set and start the slideshow, or just go through the slides with me as we go through. Okay, now, pause the video. Not you. You. Not you. Pause. Okay. So, back we are. Hopefully everything's cool. And you have a slide up on your machine that says, Agile development is planned around the development of small pieces of work. That's your, that's a very long title for a slide, okay? But this is about Agile development and the chunks that we do, okay? These roughly correspond to objects in Java, okay, roughly, modules in structured code, and so forth, okay? So it's just chunks of code that are easy to separate from other chunks of code, other chunks of functionality, shall we say, okay? So, we have a whiteboard. They were nice enough to lend me a whiteboard in this classroom, so maybe scribbling on that as well. Now, line 2, or the first bullet point on here, it says, small pieces are often referred to as items in a backlog of work, or backlog items, or in extreme programming as user stories. Personally, I have no clue what they're talking about except for the term user stories. Now, there's another term that you may be familiar with from an object-oriented perspective, which is called a use case. As a user story is a subset of a use case, okay? Use cases can be very long and can contain things like the data definitions and so forth and so on, but use cases are, object-oriented, and we're just talking about Agile development, okay? So we're not going to talk about the use cases. Although I do have I have a full-blown use case demo that is an example of an actual use case of one of the dot bombs that I was involved with. The entire development scheme of this dot bomb, the internet website, was developed using use cases by a consulting company that no longer exists for some reason. And basically, the problem with it was that the coders, first of all, you can't code from a use case. You can't really code from a user story. You can get an idea as to what happens in those things, but you can't really code from that because you really need better requirements definitions for that, okay? But that's okay. You can get an idea as to what you have to do. Again, the thing to remember is you need certain pieces of information you need some information about what's going in. This has got to be data in, and this has got to be data out, or process out. And something in here happens to produce that, okay? but there's always an output. Even if it's just a manipulation of the screen, there's always an output on this side. Okay. So the difference between user stories and use cases is that a user story is much less formal than a use case, but they perform similar functions. Now, the other problem that we had with the use case was that they weren't flexible enough. Okay? When the high mucky muck boss came in and said, okay, well, we have to change the way we calculate risk. It was an insurance company. We need to change the way we calculate risk. And unfortunately, the use case specified exactly what the risk calculation was going to be, how the information was gotten, and so forth and so on, what the inputs were, what the outputs were. The coders were not flexible enough, for lack of a better term, to be able to turn on a dime and change the way they calculated risk. That was just one example. The boss came in, and the guy who was funding this thing came in and gave us a whole bunch of different changes. Every day there was a new change. And we said, we're going to freeze the user requirements. Well, we can never do that. Because he was putting the money into the thing, he was paying the bills, he was signing the checks. You can't say, oh, gee, I'm afraid we're not going to be able to do anything with that. Okay? Because that's when the checks stop flowing, and that's exactly what happened. All right, so second bullet point is, and this is cute, I hadn't thought about this, but it's actually a pretty good idea. It says user stories are often written on index cards to keep them concise and aid in planning and modeling. Okay, now, keep it there. In the slideshow, if you go and hit your down arrow or whatever it is it takes to get to the next view, you'll find in the right-hand corner down the bottom, there's a picture of an index card with some stuff written on it. And you can use index cards. That's perfectly okay. They're easy to carry around, and they're easy enough to mark up, and they're cheap. So you can have a whole bunch of these things. I would give you one problem that I foresee, and that is that they're easy to lose. Okay? So keep that in mind. But user stories on index cards might be a good idea. Okay, now let's look at this one. This one says view a product or location as a harried shopper. Okay, this apparently is something off of a website, and you're the shopper, and you need to find out where a product is and what the location might be for that. So, and so you went to, pardon me, I have to look into this thing. Okay, so it says, I want to view a product's location in the store so I can find it and buy it quickly. Okay, so that's a user story. And that works okay. You know, you can actually put that on, like if you're an in-store kiosk, you can have that running on there. I've done a couple of those things. All right, next slide.